This week on the Grassroots podcast.
You'll have a player that comes from a low-income family, goes out there, plays in front of thousands of people. The big house sits over 100,000 people, plus people on TV. Like a star performance, and then after the game, what does he have? Barely enough food to even get a meal.
If you start paying players, then teams that make a lot of money are going to be able to pay a lot more.
The beauty of collegiate sports is that you kind of learn and kind of find out what you want to do after hockey. And that's kind of where I'm sitting right now is, you know, maybe we didn't get paid, but maybe I found a purpose.
I'm Quincy Kennedy, and you guys are hanging out at Thought Fox Studio 1, also known as the Fox Den. And to my left, we have...
I'm JFK, co-founder of NSA, and with us, we have Scott Swiston and Connor McLaughlin.
Absolutely. For those of you people who don't know you, give us a background about who you guys are and where you're from.
Right on. Well, I'm Scott. I've been an Alberta boy my entire life, and that's where I'm playing hockey right now is for the ACAC Augustana Vikings. Connor's been my teammate for... 5 years now, I guess. We started in BC together. It was a collegiate level there and got 2 years there, transferred over, and now we're just going to be going into our third year after this season with the North Stars.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm Connor. I was raised in both Arizona and Vancouver split time, and then came back up to play hockey. Obviously met Scott. We actually played against each other for a few years in the KIJHL, jungle.
Hated each other.
Did you ever drop the mitts?
No, never got that far, but we weren't friends, that's for sure. And then met each other in college, and that's where our line mate career, you could say, started. We've played together ever since, and couldn't be happier with how it's been going.
Absolutely. So would you consider yourself an American or Canadian?
Definitely Canadian.
Oh, wow. Wow. That hurts. Sorry to hear that, boys.
Can we play like the national anthem in the background? Not that one.
Oh, right. Pledge of Allegiance, you can know Absolutely. So just give us a background. How did you guys end up out here playing with the North Stars?
So one of our teammates, Bo Taylor, has been out with us actually our entire time. Started out with us when we were playing college in BC. And he's been talking it up for... since we met him, really, because he's been jumping back and forth. When he played on the coast team, and he's been, 14 years he's been flying back from Australia to Canada, playing in both leagues. He was trying to get us out here for 3 years now.
In our year, every year.
Yeah. And you know what? We've heard a lot about you guys. I know we got Scotty last year, but we've been hearing a lot of Bo Taylor is like, my line mates. Yeah. And it's good to see his line mates are out here. But continue.
No, and that's just about it, really. I lucked out last year. One of the guys got his residency early, Dane, our goalie, and within 1 week, actually, Gary, our general manager, called me and said, "Hey, you want to come out?" And I was like, "Yeah, get me out of here!"
Got the call up to the A.
Quit my job, and I was on a plane within a week.
That's awesome.
Steps into the office. I quit.
Pretty much. Yeah. And then Connor lucked out too this year.
I got to come down. Everything's been going so well. Obviously meeting you guys.
Yep.
The friends you make down here, lifelong, as far as I'm concerned, with how things have been going so far. So
thus far, what would you say is your top Australian memories? Keep it PG. Keep it PG for the kids. Keep it PG for the kids.
Mine's always been surfing. I love getting out there for the surf. You don't get that.
So you guys have been out there with Miles and learned to surf?
Learn to surf.
Yeah, all right. Awesome.
Shout out to Miles.
Yeah.
No, I had fun. We actually were just up the coast this last week. Loved Byron Bay. It was unreal.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year, because they're still getting good weather, and it's around the mid-20s, maybe
27.
27.
We were suntan in the middle of the summer.
It's too good.
There was 1 or 2 days there where we actually had better weather than our family back home. So
Yeah. Hectic. Well, topic of today, guys, talking about collegiate players getting paid. I know all three of you guys have played hockey at that collegiate level, so you guys know what it's like to play in the collegiate level and not get paid.
Yeah.
That's a topic that's really heavy right now, especially in America, the NCAA. A lot of people are having the discussion, should collegiate players get paid? Right away, what's your take on that?
I think first off, as a collegiate player, I think I'm all about getting money.
Absolutely.
Get as much as you can. But, from an ideal standpoint, I personally want to keep it in the amateur level. And I think once you start paying players, it's not amateur anymore. You're playing pro hockey.
Absolutely.
I'd have to agree with Scott. The only difference I'd say was, you want to get the most out of your playing years. Coming up to 25, right? We only have so many years left, and we're still in college hockey. Still not getting paid. You want to start seeing some return for all the effort you put in.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, not being a collegiate player myself, and understanding both what you guys are saying and your viewpoint on it, I see it actually as collegiate players do more work, the same if not more work than professionals. In regards, you guys are studying, right? You're balancing that work-life balance. You're probably working a part-time job as well, in addition to playing at that high competitive level of hockey. I think the least they could do is give you something to help support you. Because you do need to spend that time in the gym. You do need to spend that time studying, and then you working doesn't help. So kind of helping you fund your ways, maybe paying for meals or something, I think would at least help you guys be more focused. What do you guys think?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess my college background being from like RPI, playing Div 1 there, I never really thought about it. I know as of lately, the topic has been brought up and it's been really pressed, but initially you've always viewed as college hockey as free. You get your education and that's all that's all you're focused on. When I was playing juniors growing up, that was my main focus. I always knew I wanted to go to school, wanted to, be able to have my college education taken care of, because there's always life after sports. No matter if you play professional for 20 years or 30 years, however long you play, there's always life after sports. And I wanted to have an education to go along with me with that. But once this topic came up, it made sense. You're talking like Big Ten schools. You're talking about SEC. I know for hockey, we're in an arena where, there are teams that are generating a lot of income, but you have to think about the big schools. You got to think about the big sports in America, where football, basketball, where they're generating millions. And in certain cases, like I guess the extreme case, you'll have a player that comes from a low income family, goes out there, plays in front of thousands of people. The big house sits over 100,000 people, plus people on TV. Like star performance, and then after the game, what does he have? Barely enough food to even get a meal.
Right.
So that's the extreme case. So it's just like, how can all this money be pumped into a sport? This kid is performing. This kid has to go to classes. This kid has to take care of his body. Like the rigor of a student athlete is, I wouldn't say ridiculous, because it builds something and I think it's great for them, but it is a lot. To have your classes, a typical schedule, like for you during like your early days in college, what was the typical?
5 is like a maximum course load, but even I remember our first year they were saying don't take more than 4, you'll fail out.
Yeah,
and
just 3.
Every year that we've played, there's been 1 or 2 players who can't even handle that as a course load. Once you get all those things combined, especially if you're trying to make money on the side, that's when things get hectic.
And exactly, and that's the thing. So then you have players that are highly touted from professional teams. So they have that in the back of their head that I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get to the top level. I want to get paid. I want to sign that contract. At the same time, they have to stay school eligible. And so it's not like they can just not study or not do their work. They have to do that. They have to focus on it. But then, like, people argue that some classes are easier for student athletes here.
Basket weaving,
underwater basket weaving,
rocks for jobs.
I'm speaking for behalf of all the players that have been through there. I have a chemical engineering degree. Like, there's players that have double majors. There's players that have doctorates. So these aren't just your typical. Even though I mentioned the extreme case of a really poor player,
right?
Like the extreme case of where all athletes are just, dumb. That's an extreme case. Athletes are smart. And that's why when it comes down to hiring, people like to see that. Yeah. Like to see someone that is an athlete, can do those things, can communicate, can work within a team. So there's a lot on the table.
Now, do you think that's something because they aren't getting paid, that they're just taking these dumb classes? And if they were getting paid, then maybe they wouldn't be focusing on the next level. They could be focusing on what they're doing right away.
I think you would get more players that would leave, they wouldn't be trying to itch to get to the next level. I know they've put something in basketball where now players aren't going straight from high school straight to the pro. Yeah. Obviously, the reason they're doing that is it's money. Literally, they don't even have to play a game. If you're that highly scouted as a high school player to LeBron James or something, you're within an endorsements. Before you even touch the ball in the NBA game, you're set for For some people, life. For them, maybe not so. So, I mean, I think you would have a more of an incentive to stay in school, to stay that extra year, to actually, you know what, if I'm going to be here 4 years, I'm going to get paid the 4 years. Might as well get my education all the way and stick it out. Because I know players that leave after their junior season. They have a stint, and maybe they'll play a couple games in the AHL. For our listeners out there, if you don't follow hockey, you have the NHL, which is your top pro. Underneath that, you have the AHL, which is your American Hockey League, which is AAA hockey. Below that, you have AA hockey, which is your East Coast Hockey League. And then you have your single A, which is the Southern Pro Hockey League. So players, a lot of the times, you'll get players right after their college season, sometimes after their junior season or senior season, that can play East Coast or AHL. If you can play AHL, legit, you have signed an AHL contract, you're talking upwards mid-60s, $70,000 contract the following year. And at the state of, I mean, the working class right now, that's a good paycheck.
Yeah, right.
In America right now, or Canada, if you're pulling checks at $70K, playing a game,
feeling good.
Tell me you're not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, plus they get a lot of their expenses paid for. They're on the road for half the season. Everything's paid for when you're doing their per diems. You know, that stuff that's not even factored into that.
Yeah.
You know?
I know with the big conferences in the NCAA, so like the Big Ten and the Pac-12, a lot of those schools pack a lot into their sporting, and like you have the nice facilities and the kind of getaway rooms that the whole teams have, or a really nice locker room, or meals set out for game days and throughout the week, and it's really kind of like the red carpet's rolled out for them. Kind of, have you experienced that playing collegiate levels hockey? Is the carpet rolled out for you? Would you say that some of those expenses that they could be using to pay you is going towards those little, I guess, benefits of being a collegiate player?
Yeah, you see here and there. Definitely not Big Ten level. That's their draw. That's their sell to get players like LeBron James or whoever we're talking about here. The next star to your team is, look at this locker room, look at these meals, look at what you're looking at when you come to this school. It's not just that you're going to this school playing football here. You get this as well. You know, it's pretty cushy for the players, whether or not they're getting paid or not. So if you're at the top of the level there, but definitely even at our level, you see some of that. You get a little something.
We're not. And you appreciate it, right?
Yeah, of course. So.
Absolutely. So let's say that they did start paying players. Where do you see that going long term? Do you see maybe the money that they were using for facilities are starting to kind of be removed, and you see facilities becoming older and more run down? Do you see players wanting to stay in college longer? What do you think would actually happen if they start paying collegiate?
This is where I start to think that things get a little dicey, because if you start paying players, then teams that make a lot of money are going to be able to pay a lot more. I mean, you look at NHL teams, you look at Detroit, and then you maybe go to like a team like Arizona. Shot of glass. But I mean, you look at the fan base there, and I mean, the money that's able to be paid is going to determine a better team or a worse team. And I think that starts to divide where it should be an equal playing field all the way through.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could understand that, because if I think gridiron or football, that's definitely how it would work. If those schools that have the money, it wouldn't be the even playing field. You wouldn't have the conferences that you have, because it'd be just dominant teams because they had the money to pay.
And just on that, like Scotty said, I think you open Pandora's box. What's the important thing is having a conversation, but once you put it practically, practically paying players, now you have to look at the logistics and how do you break that down? Okay, how do you break it down? Is it only Div 1 teams are doing this? Or is it Div 2? Because I know there's Div 2 teams, once again, in the big arenas of football and basketball, that could support, their teams that are generating a lot of income. But now you're going down to Div 3. And, I mean, when it comes on to basketball, I can't tell you how many Division 1 basketball teams that you've never heard of. They're almost like I'm surprised, like DeVry University probably like online universities have a Div 1 basketball team. So I mean, it's just like, okay, if you do this, it's going to be under the blanket of NCAA. So then that means every level, and then you have it's going to slip my mind, something Chapter 9, Sector 9. Pretty much the ruling that says whenever you have a male sport, you have to have a female sport. A female sport. Michael will put it in the notes or something. Yeah. Facts don't matter. But it's just when you have to have. Are you going to tell me that female basketball generates as much income as male basketball? Are you going to tell me that? I'm not trying to be problematic, but let's be honest. Is female hockey going to bring in as much revenue as men's hockey? So then now we're going back to, well, how do we level the playing field? So it has to, you don't want to have any gender discrimination. So then you would have to bring everything to the same level. And then, okay, so then you're telling me a kid on the men's hockey team that literally could jump and play pro next year has to have the same amount of money as a female girl that maybe walked onto the team.
Right.
So then is his incentive to stay in college still there? Did paying him actually make that big of a difference?
I mean, how much money are we talking here?
And that's exactly.
I mean, if we're talking enough to get the food, like we were talking about earlier,
yeah.
you know, like just living expenses, really, like come out of your college career even.
Yeah.
If you could come out of your
cap.
Yeah.
Free for all, you know?
I mean, if you did start paying your players like a legitimate amount of money, yeah, they'd stay there as long as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
They'd burn every year of eligibility.
Yeah,
definitely.
But like the more you're talking about it, the more I'm actually warming up to this idea.
yeah, we should pay.
Maybe not.
It's gonna be picket signs.
But like we were talking about when we were talking to the RPI lacrosse players that were in town, and when we interviewed them and talking to Max, and then you and me had the conversation later that why does RPI have such a high turnover with lacrosse players? Well, it's because it's Div 3 and it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know? Well, what if you started paying? Maybe they would be more apt to having a better rate of holding their players, and maybe they would be more, I guess, optimistic about playing professional.
That's a great point. And like I think it goes back. I'm a big fan of Freakonomics, and a big thing that they talk about are incentives, and how do you keep that incentive? And like you said, that's a great point, because when you get to that point, Div 3 lacrosse, one, they're just now having a pro league in lacrosse, so there's some excitement there. But even if you play pro in lacrosse, you're still working in the summer or in the off season, because it's not generating that much income yet. It's in the forefront. It's just now gaining momentum.
Right.
So if you have a Div 3 player, why would he? If you're not invested, like, you should never play a game if you're not invested into it. At the end of the day, why we play sports, we have fun. I mean, we love what we do. We love what we do as a game. But on top of that, if you're grinding day in, day out with the workouts, not enjoying being on the field, not enjoying being like, and you add on top of that like what your career's done after this, it's like why bother?
So let's say the opportunity to get paid was there, and let's say you're in high school or you're playing the OHL before you get to the collegiate level. Would you be, I guess, more motivated to continue playing because there's money involved, or do you feel like you'd still be playing for the love of the game?
Yeah, I think there would be more motivation to play collegiate as well, but I think there is revenues or avenues that you could go where you are getting paid right out of school, anywhere you go. So if that's your like main motivator, you could find a route to get paid regardless, whether it's like we're talking SP, EC, AHL. If you're really looking to get paid, then there's ways you can go about doing that. You know what? Back to the amateur talk though. The reason that I think that, you should get into collegiate hockey, I kind of wasn't really sure. I think Scott was the same way about schooling. We didn't have greatest 12th grade grades. We were able to make it into a school because we were good athletes, not because of our grades, I'd say.
Yeah.
And once we got into school, we kind of, figured out that we weren't going to be the dropouts, first of all, and that we could actually excel at something, and something that we, gained interest in. And I think that's the beauty of collegiate sports, is that you kind of learn and kind of find out what you want to do after hockey. And that's kind of where I'm sitting right now is, maybe we didn't get paid, but maybe I found a purpose.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
If you start paying people too to play collegiate sports, you might not find people like us who go into it and then actually find that we like schooling, we like learning what we want to do. You might find people joining collegiate just to make just to join that money, and even if they hate the sport, they hate going to school, they're making money.
But I mean, essentially though, I'm not going to put a blanket over it, but in most cases, if you do have some of those people, quote unquote, you say drop kicks or something, because I played pro. I'm going to be dead honest. I played pro, and from playing college hockey, the guys in that locker room, education wise, having a conversation with, compared to just straight hockey players, we're talking like, they're almost like the cavemen of hockey players, where if there wasn't hockey, what would they do? Like, you're almost scared because, like, on the ice, they are phenomenal. But off the ice, you can't hold a conversation. Like you just wonder where do they find themselves in civilization.
And that's the scary part. Like, you get injured. Like,
if they get injured, like
you're done.
You're done.
There's
you know
nothing to fall back on. No schooling, and that's another good reason to go the collegiate route.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a good 30 for 30 about that. Yeah, so so continually and moving forward with that, I guess the big question would be, if someone did offer you a check, would you take it?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, I'd want to say no to keep the integrity of the sport. Sport.
I mean, well, that's what it is. It's a practical conversation. Realistically.
What if it's something where you get paid down the road, like third, fourth year of school, you get paid more as you get along into your program. Well. You know, first year you don't get paid. Second year you get paid a bit. Third, fourth, you're getting paid more and more as you go.
So you're a solutions man. Are you an engineer? I was about to say that. When you're solving problems, that sounds like engineering. Now, I want to go to a case where I want to say it was the Ohio State college football team. I think a couple of their players ended up selling their championship jerseys and rings for money.
Yeah, right.
Well, because they received money for that, even though they won it, downright won it and everything, they sold that for money, got it, and because they received money, were considered non-amateur, and their team, did they lose the championship? Or did they? Right. I don't know if they lost. I don't know if they lost the championship, if they pulled it away, or if the team couldn't compete for the title the following year. I'm sorry, we're going to have to throw the facts up. I need to get better at my facts. I need like a tablet right here.
If you're listening right now and you know, please let us know.
Yeah, please, throw it in the comments. Don't be afraid to tweet at us. But I think that's insane. And I remember I got frustrated with that story because I know hockey. Like, how many times, like, hockey is a silver spoon sport. Like, at the end of the day, you're not going to get... I'm getting really problematic. I'm getting really problematic. You're not gonna have little Jamal on the street like, oh hey guys, want to play hockey?
Jamal usually doesn't play.
Yeah, okay. Like play hockey. I mean, it's gonna be more of families that are well off, mid to high class families that can play ice hockey. You will have. I mean, there is enough accessible equipment for say a lower class player that really joins. But most of the time, it's going to be mid to upper class, all right? Right. So you're talking about scholarship athletes, mom and dad taken care of, they have a car, they're at campus, they get 26 during the season, they only break a certain amount of those, and so they go back home with 10 sticks. Tell me what college player hasn't sold sticks when they've gone back home, hasn't sold their equipment when they've gone back home.
Yeah.
But obviously, because it's not high profile, highlighted, then nothing happens. A player that sells skates. I can go through each and every college locker room right now, and if anyone's listening, they know it's true. And for the fact of the matter, because these guys who don't have much, aren't well off, sell something that they physically won. They physically won that. It's not like someone handed that to them. Hard blood, sweat, and tears. Won something. They sold it for money. Obviously, they were strapped for it.
Right.
And then they get in trouble, and then the school has to get punished. That's stupid.
That is
and that's where you're talking about, like, where does NCAA feel that they're in the right for doing something like that when there's millions upon millions of money being made in collegiate sports, and then you try to throw the book at them. That's where I just don't find it.
You're passionate about that, aren't you?
Well, it's high profile. You're looking at one of the biggest sports that the NCAA has underneath them. Yeah. You see a high-profile athlete do something like that, you got to lay the hammer down, or else everybody's gonna think that's all right. Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's where you draw the line in the sand, and unfortunately, it's going to be the high-profile sports players who are going to have to deal with that more than everybody else. So,
all right. So what about scholarships? Isn't that paying players?
Yeah, I mean, if you really look at it, but I think that's only schooling.
Yeah, it's only school.
I don't think I've ever really heard of anything above or beyond that, unless you're looking at like extras.
Sauce it over to.
Definitely agree. No, it's just your schooling and that's it. So
you're getting a full ride,
full boat, whatever your schooling costs are, and that's it.
That's it, but that's a lot.
No.
I mean, essentially, if you're going to school and it's $80,000, for your education, like you just got paid, like that's a nice salary, like $20,000 a year, like I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah.
That's math.
But here's the thing, though. That's capped. That is capped. Scholarships are capped. Yeah. So that means that not every player can get a scholarship. You can't recruit a whole team on scholarships.
Yeah, you can only do like 16
there's
full or something, or 12 full.
Yeah, exactly. So so that's a limited amount of players, a limited amount of scholarships. Like my situation going into school, I went into RPI with an athletic scholarship. Due to the fact we had some high profile players that were on full rides that ended up leaving after their freshman season, that freed up cash in the, like, what do we call that? The cap. Freed up cash in the cap, and I was able to get my final 2 years a full ride.
Right. Yeah.
Which, it kind of worked out. But see, like, when you think about it, like, oh, okay, scholarships, you're getting their education paid for. True. And that is a good, you could say, a good trade. But at the same time, it's not available for every player.
Yeah, right, yeah. But earlier, one of you guys mentioned that, well, then you would see teams, I guess, pulling more from high school players and paying them. Well, that's the same thing with scholarship. You have a certain player that you want, so you're going to throw scholarship money at them to make sure you get them. Well, what's the difference? You just have less players to choose from, essentially.
True. I mean, one of the other pulls with only having so much like sports scholarship money that you can dish out is that it really pulls academics into the mix. I remember when I was growing up, my old man would always say, like, make sure your grades are good. It's easier to get into schools. And I was like, yeah, I blew that off. But
what are you talking about?
You don't know what you're talking about.
But realistically, if you can only give out 12 full scholarships worth of like playing scholarships, then I mean, if you have a player that can get 100% academic scholarship, then that player is on your roster, doesn't need any scholarships. You can have a better team. Yeah. So then you're looking for better academic players in scholarship if you keep that cap low.
And to be honest, that's where it comes down to, and even the school itself. Because even though, like, that is a level playing field on the number of scholarships you're allowed, you have to think about the school in itself. Certain schools have different levels of acceptance. I know Ivy League schools is going to be harder to get into. Your state schools, easy. Hence why usually your Ivy League schools, just because of the level that they're at, people want to go there because of the prestige of those schools. Right. You'll get the smart athletic kid. But at the same time, like,
you look at the athletic kids at Ivy League schools.
Yes, they do. They do. But see, that's what I'm saying. Like, they do. Like, it's that rare combination. You're looking for a diamond compared to where you can have any player that just has incredible athletic abilities that skims in through some state school where it's just like, oh yeah, we'll take you. Right. And like, all you need to have is the bare minimum of words are slipping my mind. In order to get into college, you have to go through a system
like your SAT.
Clearinghouse. Yeah, clearinghouse. Clearinghouse. So clearinghouse, they make the minimal of clearinghouse, and then they're into school. So
absolutely. Well, it's almost getting to that time where we bring in our friend Jase for Better Than Yesterday.
Jason,
before we get into that, I do want to ask you. Earlier, you mentioned that, like, because you went the collegiate route, like, you kind of get that opportunity over those years to really kind of find yourself, find what you want to do, your passions. For those people listening, I guess explain that process and how that's helped you and what you got out of it.
Well, I guess I'd have to say, meeting fellow players who are taking the same thing as you definitely helps going into every classroom knowing 4 or 5 guys in the same class. It definitely makes schoolwork a little bit easier when you're able to bounce ideas off each other. I wouldn't say cheating, but definitely helping each other. So, and then you kind of find something, maybe it's a topic during class, piques your interest, and then, you go from there. I know Scott's definitely got his own company ideas. He's the idea man, and we're all just going to make money off Scott one day. So it's definitely interesting to see how different players kind of progress, whether it's, we have a few guys on our team who want to be doctors or engineers, or else there's guys like us who want to be entrepreneurs. And, it's kind of cool to see, just what everybody's drive is throughout school as well as hockey. So
that's right. We're going to see you guys in Silicon Valley one day, or the next text.
Not electronic.
Keep it on the down. Absolutely. So my favorite part of the podcast is here. Better Than Yesterday. I want to welcome our man, Jase.
What's up, man?
Gentlemen, we'll make some room squeeze in.
Jason, how's it going?
Cozy.
Nutrition.
Yep.
Good boys, how's things?
Great. Good. A lot of things are happening. Sports. We just love sports, and that's what we're all we do. Sports. That's all we do.
Staying healthy. I bet you'll be happy to know that back in the gym, eating really clean and healthy, according to my regimen. I don't know
Absolutely, still got to look at that.
And you know what? Now I have to do a little both because I'm a recent father and everything like that. But I'm like, I want to get to the gym. I want to spend time with the family at home, but I couldn't do both. So I pulled the car out of the garage and I did my little home workout right there. The wife had the big Swiss ball?
Yeah.
The big Swiss ball. She had the Swiss ball, so she didn't really use that. So I was using the Swiss ball, like have some like skill slider. Those things are amazing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You weren't holding Ava.
No. Yeah. I do hold Ava and do squats at the same time. So I got a home workout in 30 minutes and I felt great. So
That's right.
But Jason, what do you have for us?
Really, I think paying athletes, controversial topic again, but really, boys, where would the money go? If you guys got a substantial amount of money, what would you put it towards? Barring, obviously, your food, drink, expenses and that, but would you really put it into training or throwing?
I mean, do you want an honest answer?
That wasn't in the cards.
I mean, above and beyond day-to-day living, if you gave me extra money, I would buy cooler stuff and party harder on the weekends.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't invest any of it? You invest your own money now? I'd like to think
I might invest it
in our future, but is it something where you got to bring receipts back? Like, I want to better myself.
But no, Jason,
for better food or better workouts.
Yeah. I mean, if you're hiring personal trainers, yoga instructors, but I mean, our team would help that in.
Money's going.
So, Jason, I'm going to play devil's advocate. All right. So you're saying that we need to legitimize what they're spending it on. You have people that are 40s, 50s that still don't know how to handle money. So if you give it to these athletes, who's to say what is good and what is bad with what they do with the money?
Absolutely. And I reckon there's a third step to that. You could take everything away and go, how about those extra finances, pure athlete development? Why not give everyone a level playing field within that team to develop their nutrition, develop their athletic performance, so when they go out there on the field, on the ice, whoever performs their best gets the opportunity from that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think money in sport can be a bad thing because, like, why did you guys start sport?
Yeah, we loved it.
Exactly.
It was fun.
For the game, yeah.
And I think that can sometimes change for an athlete as well.
Definitely.
But yeah, bring back that notion of, where does the money go? Ensuring it goes to the right things because, critical time to develop your base level in terms of your peak performance.
Yeah.
But would it really go to that?
Absolutely.
Now,
Since we're actually talking about the limited amount of resources and finances we have in college, I guess what would you say or recommend for keeping that healthy nutritional value meal plan or whatnot for these collegiate athletes who are on a budget?
Absolutely. I think honestly, the hard part is as well, the worst foods are generally the cheapest foods for you. So, going to that fast food restaurant and getting a full meal for $2 or $3 is pretty attractive, really. And, it tastes good. And most of the team's probably going to be there as well.
Yeah.
So kind of breaking that trend, I think it's getting some skills back. The amount of people that I run into that don't have any cooking skills to prepare food would say that they're time poor to not be able to prepare food as well. I think giving the respect back to meal times and what they can actually give you in terms of the petrol that your body's going to need to not only fuel your training, but to also adapt, get better.
Yeah. I mean, along with the cheapness of it, I think the speed is the other thing that, especially affects student athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at one of our schedules, class, practice, class, and then you got fit a workout in somewhere, fit in, study time, group meetings. Like, I'm like, the day before, you have to plan your next 3 meals every single time, and that's the hardest for us. I mean, you're talking slow cooking and stuff, but like, you give me a bunch of money and I can. There's programs now that will literally deliver food to your door. We even looked at it this year, to be honest.
Absolutely.
But I mean, you give me money, you give me someone who delivers healthy meals to my door 3 times a day, 2 snacks, I would spend that in a heartbeat.
And I think that would be a good use of the resources. And I know when it comes on to student athletes, you have 2. When it comes on to eating, there's 2 types of athletes. Well, 2 variances. You have the person that's on campus that only gets cafeteria food, and then you have the player that's off campus where they're in their own house. And that's where I see the discipline of on a Sunday meal prepping throughout the week and making sure that you have those meals with you. Once again, we athletes will make the excuse that I don't have time. But essentially, Sunday is usually a rest day for most people, recovery day, if some people would like to say that as well. And I think if you're serious about your body, if you're serious about your sport, you're serious about taking it to the next level, you're not going to make that excuse. If you really want to make it to the next level, you are going to meal prep this Sunday. Because, I mean, even now, like as a husband, father, blah, 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 if I don't meal prep, my diet is awful. So just putting that into perspective, we're all time poor. Everyone's time poor, so you have to do that. But I guess speak on the player that has cafeteria food presented to them day in and day out because they have to eat on campus. How do they, and I know it's getting better, but at the same time, I've been at the National Development Camp here in Australia, and the food was disgusting. And like, it's all government subsidized and all this, but what do? Like, you have to eat something.
It's making the best of a bad situation, really. I think you need to have that education with not only that meal prep. So if you're going to cook something, it's like, how long will this last me from one cooking event? What's the most bang for buck that I can get? So you know that if you're doing something in, a base of a meal with veggies, whether they're raw or cooked, you're going to get 5 days out of them. You know if you're going to have your carbohydrate source, whether it might be a potato or pasta or rice, you're going to get 5 days out of that if you store it correctly, knowing that your protein foods are only going to last you around about 3 days, depending on how fresh they are when you get them out. So essentially, you can only have 2 cooks per week, really, and you would be set. Having that bulk amount when you're cooking it can really save money as well. So giving players that education, and if you're stuck on campus, have someone come into that campus, and I guarantee they'd save money at that campus if they restructured their food system, got some of those meals in there, because it's the cheapest part of the meal can actually be the veggies if you're buying it in season, compared to some of the way that they're comprising the meals now. It's, in my mind, it's just so confusing. Yeah.
So how did you guys eat?
Like kings.
Actually, we cook together most of the time, actually. So I'd like to think that we eat pretty well, but it is a process cooking for 2 guys our size. Like, you got to cook. We have volume. Like, even just our oven is not big enough for like the meals, like the wok that you cook up, like your pasta or whatever. And it's volume, and it's just we finish that in a night. Like, it's hard to cook that much food for someone.
Absolutely.
Definitely on a diet like we need while we're playing sports. So, but I'd say like some of the worst meals we get are on the road. Like when we're traveling with the team, like we'll go pizza after a game. You're like, I guess, like, I don't know.
Soggy Subway.
Like, you're gone a whole weekend, and you're like, okay, am I supposed to bring my own food for this weekend trip because they're feeding me pizza after games? Or like, I don't know. It's hard to, you can't refrigerate it on the bus. Like, it's tough. And then they'll take you to like Burger King on the way home or whatever it is, right? Here, just.
You know what? I feel like, that's the story of every, I would say, junior team. Like, once you start traveling as a team, junior team, college team, that's what you do. Like, it's quick, it's easy, it's convenient. But then again, it's like, what type of message are you sending to your players? You know what I mean? Because like, for 1 second, you're like, okay, we're elite, we do this, we're structured. Like, everything's about good habits. I mean, the strongest teams have great habits day in and day out. It's not about what you do on the field, it's what you do off the field and everything like that. So then, okay, we just play a game, we won, woohoo, okay, here's some pizza.
Yeah.
And I just think that's I think it's a mixed signal, and I think more teams should look into that. I wonder how the scenery looks right now in collegiate sports. Our team's trying to do a healthier option. Our team's storing, I guess, salads on the road, or getting like proper meals, like a good protein with carbohydrates, so the guys can refuel their bodies the proper way.
I would have to think so, especially like we talked about those Big Ten schools, or those bigger NCAA schools. Like, I couldn't imagine that they would be putting their giving their players junk.
You'd be surprised. Like, especially on the road. I mean, when you're at home, you can be taken care of, but when you're on the road, it's get on the bus, get going.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the support systems that need to be there, because one of my best mates, shout out to Nathan, who's a psychologist, gave me a great analogy, and it's so true that you guys as athletes, and anyone really, has 100% capacity. So just imagine a bucket full of water. So automatically your training is going to take up a portion of that bucket right there. Your meal prep, as I just said, if you've got a job, there's more of that bucket space. And then you've got your education on top of that. You're topping out. Okay, you need that extra support, and if it's not provided to you, what hope do you have?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about money in collegiate sport. If you're tossing out money, toss it to that.
Absolutely.
Toss it to getting players healthy,
Yeah.
getting them a trainer, get them whatever they need in terms of a support system. I think that's where I'd love to see a lot more money go. And then that's something that an athlete can really handle and not have to, worry about what you're going to do with all your money when you get it. You know?
Absolutely.
It's like, all right,
Sets them up well for when they're done collegiate sports too, because you're going out and you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And especially if they teach you how to cook it, like here's a meal plan. This is what you should be cooking. You need help cooking it? We'll come in. We'll help you. We'll show you how to do it once.
I want to say at the NHL Combine, they had like they were showing some behind the scenes things. And they actually did have a cooking course for the players. And I think it was funny, seeing those players in the kitchen, but it's huge. My mom taught me how to cook, but I am an egg connoisseur, and I can't tell you how many egg meals I've made in college. But when you're cooking food, I would say, I'm going to ask you, if I'm cooking food more often than not, am I being more healthy than microwaving?
Ooh. Modern food technology now, there are some good options. And that's where education can come into it as well.
Please educate us.
Educate us. I want to be better than yesterday.
Yes.
If you're stuck on the road and all you can get is frozen veg, chuck it in the microwave. That's actually better than what's in most supermarkets after being 6 months in storage and then put out on the shelf to you. It's snap frozen straight away. So all those nutrients are still intact. That's the scary part of what supermarkets are doing.
So when I'm on the road and I go to a petrol station, they do have frozen food sometimes.
Do they?
Yes, they do. Sometimes they have those
Like the tuna sandwich is not.
No, like frozen packets. Like they'll have like a small freezer section.
Yeah.
Essentially, what you're saying is, if I could get frozen veggies within that, would it be worth it?
There's a start. There's an absolute start.
I'd like that option a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are all
Actually sounds
veggies
pretty legit.
treated equally?
All veggies matter.
All veggies matter, right? Not one problematic life. Well, I'm saying, are there like processed vegetables that's like, oh yeah, although it's frozen, it's probably not healthy for you?
With preservatives and things like that.
Yeah.
Frozen, you get away from that. But, anything in the canning process, you're going to have to load a bucket load of salt to it. So you're going to go for the cans to stop the bacteria growth from there. But things that they spray onto foods as well before you get them, that's, to extend that shelf life if it hasn't been either frozen or canned or preserved in some way. That's the worrying part. And not so much in terms of fresh fruit and veg, but like your meats. So things like nitrates as well to extend the shelf life, make them appear more visually appealing, like a red meat. You're always going to pick instead of that dingy old brown one in the corner.
Yeah, right.
That's pure chemicals that they put onto it as well. And we don't know the long-term health consequences of ingesting those things because it's only so recent that it's been added to. No short-term consequences, it's deemed safe. But do we know?
Do we know?
No.
Listening to this conversation, I have to ask, so collegiate players, listening to you guys don't eat the healthiest, but you guys are the most athletic beings on earth. So if they had a healthier diet, could they perform at a higher level than they're already performing?
Absolutely. I'd love to see the potential of what you guys could do if you were just nutted down and really thought as your food as fuel and purely as that for a point in time. Max out your performance. And you know what? If you don't make it to the top grade, so be it. But don't die wondering. Have those support systems in place to give everyone that fuel, give everyone the right training programs. And, there will be that extra 1 to 2% in the population that are just naturally athletically gifted.
Yeah.
And they will always make it and always push through. But I think you'd be amazed at the level increase across the board that you would have if you had those support systems in place just to boost not only the fuel that's going in, but that training load and stimulus that you can put on the body as well.
Is there a point where fuel is just fuel? Like they always talk about Michael Phelps's Olympic diet where he's eating 5 Big Macs and you're like,
absolutely.
That's you? Like, is it just it doesn't matter. Consume.
He has to, because takeaway foods are really concentrated sources of petrol. They're high in fat, they're high in sugar and salt, so they're easy to put away. They taste fantastic. But for him to get that much petrol for the volume of training, he could eat those and get away with it, and it really doesn't matter.
But is he getting away with it? I mean, when you say getting away with it, as in, like, is that still hindering his performance? Could he be fueling himself on something else that would be better? Like, what if it was sweet potatoes, like massive amounts of sweet potatoes and rice and things? Like, I don't know. Like I said, like chicken. Like, could he be fueling with that and having a better performance? Or are you just saying or is it like a parabola where there's like a threshold where it doesn't matter, where I'm doing so much that once I get to here, that pretty much my body's just burning it?
First and foremost, petrol content has to be satisfied to fuel the training. So he's gone big tick with that. But then he's looking at the type of petrol, and that's where I disagree with that diet. I think you could tweak what he's having to get some healthier fats in there. That's more of a long-term health consequence for the healthier fats and the way it's playing with your cholesterol levels. But definitely looking at the types of carbohydrates that he's having, timing them around his training times more so, being really specific on the things that get into your system quick to give you that rapid burning energy, but also the ones that burn nice and slowly. Making sure you've got regular protein hits in enough in terms of an amount, but not too much that the body can't handle it, and just gets rid of it. It's about tweaking each of those nutrients in the right amounts at the right time. But I think there was still latitude with him, but I think he was one of those like naturally gifted people as well.
Outlier.
Absolutely.
Huh, what a fantastic show.
That was great. Before you wrap up, I just want to tell all of our athletes out there, those were a lot of great things. And I know for myself, a lot of the times when we eat as in to fill our bodies. But what Jason's saying here, rethink, and rewire your mind to, instead of just, I'm trying to fill my stomach, I'm trying to fuel my engine. And if I want my engine to be pumping at its premium, at its optimum performance, I got to put the right stuff in. And when you said that really clicked with me. And that's what I think. Every time I pick up something, I'm like, am I fueling my body? Like, is this going to be something good that is going to result into better performance? Or is this going to set me back? So, awesome stuff, Jason.
Absolutely. Well, that's a lot of great nuggets for you guys listening, parents out there listening, how to fuel your student athletes or your younger athletes, your kids, coaches listening to what we're talking about, and how you can provide a better diet for your players to get that optimal performance. So if you guys want to join this conversation, stick around and see how you guys can plug in and talk to us about the conversation on collegiate athletes getting paid. Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode. If you like what you heard, subscribe to us on YouTube or iTunes. We want to hear your opinion on this week's topic, so let us know on our Twitter poll at Grassroots_AU. Do you think student athletes should get paid to play, or should they receive benefits via other means? Don't forget to check out our other social media platforms, Grassroots_sports on Instagram and Grassroots Sports on Facebook. Head over to grassroots-sports.com.au and sign up for the Grassroots Sport newsletter for exclusive content and competitions. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you next time on the Grassroots Podcast.